Hi, Chris here with a quick update. I'd intended to have a new video out about 2 weeks ago now, and obviously that hasn't happened. To explain why, I need to tell you what happened to me about 3 weeks ago, on April the 21st. It was a nice day, a Tuesday. I worked on the video a bit in the morning. I'm just doing the visuals at this point. It's all written and edited, and I'm just working my way through the timeline and assigning, just inserting shots. I spent a couple of hours that morning tidying my desk completely, like clearing it out and clearing it off and polishing it, and just really it had been a mess for a long time, was way overdue, so I was really happy with that. I grabbed some lunch and it was a nice day. I headed outside for a short walk in the afternoon. I had no idea that when I went out there, I wouldn't be going back into that building for 9 days. And it wouldn't be to live, it would be to salvage what I could. You see, my home was this old Victorian lace mill that was built in the late 19th century that had been converted to about 100 apartments. But just as I got back from my walk, I saw black smoke rising from one of the flats in the roof. I called the fire brigade. Someone had already done it, but I provided the street name and things which they didn't know. And as me and the other residents stood outside, waiting for the fire brigade to arrive, and then as they started to work, this fire went from something that I figured the fire brigade would be able to probably put out to something big enough that I knew that I wouldn't be getting back into my flat that day, and then to a fire that where I knew that I didn't have a flat to go back into. And that happened in the space of about 15 minutes. It spread that fast. Now, nobody was hurt in this fire. No residents, no firefighters were injured in any way. Fortunately, I'm absolutely fine, as was everyone else. They were all quickly accounted for. But you know the expression that someone had only the clothes on their back? Well, I was literally in that proverbial situation. I had only the clothes on my back and the contents of my pockets, which fortunately included a wallet with bank cards, and fortunately included a phone. I called my sister, she came and picked me up and drove me to her house, which was a few miles away, and that's where I lived for the next 2 weeks, with her and her husband and her 2 children, my niece and nephew, age 7 and 9. There was not a lot of space for me, but they were absolutely selfless in putting me up and giving me as much support as I could possibly hope for. While I was there, I was calling insurance companies and utility companies to cancel things. I was going to residents' meetings that were happening where there were updates from the fire service and from the building management company and the council and the Red Cross and various things. I managed to pick up some clothes from there because they had a lot of donations coming in. But while I was doing those things, my sister and her husband were doing something that was far from my mind at the time, which is looking at accommodation, setting up viewings, and trying to find furniture donations on Facebook. None of these things are, of course, particularly easy to do in a national shutdown. So as a result of all the amazing support that I got from my family and friends and a lot of complete strangers who were donating clothes and furniture and things, I am now in a new flat. I'm in a place of my own. I've got a place to sleep. I've got a place to cook. I've got a fridge, freezer, sofas, armchairs, desks, tables, all the things that I need. As I said earlier, I did get to go back into my flat to retrieve some possessions. The fire hadn't reached my floor, it was confined only to the top floor, and there was no smoke damage either, but what had happened is the firefighting effort had poured probably tens or hundreds of thousands of gallons of water into the top of the building, and of course, that all made its way down to the ground floor through everyone else's flat. So, the amount of water damage in there, after 9 days of mostly warm days, and that was not clean water, that was canal water. Well, you might be able to imagine the scene. It was the most surreal experience that I think I've ever had, because it had the feeling of urban exploration, of a place where something had happened and it had been abandoned. Like, this was a place that people used to live, and you could see what they were doing when they left and all that. And so you had that sort of slightly eerie but compelling angle to it. Add to that the fact that it was actually my home, that it had used to be my home and had been my home for 10 years. You couldn't sit down. Everything was covered in mold and mildew. There was a horrible, close and very musty atmosphere. Basically anything that was fabric or paper had essentially been ruined. I grabbed what I could. I probably left behind 95% of my possessions. I only had half an hour in there because that was the length of time that had been deemed safe to be in there without protective equipment, because of the amount of mold spores in the atmosphere. Like, some of the ceilings had collapsed. Metal was rusty, like it had been there for like 5 years. It was extremely strange to be in there, in a very emotional time too. I lost my entire library of books and magazines, all of my clothes. Nothing was really worth getting out of there. Practically everything. I did get some equipment back. I pulled out my iMac, which actually still boots. That's fine, and which I can still use. That was my video editing machine. Lost my PC, which was sitting on the floor, and the floor was about a foot deep in water at one point. Fortunately, I had backups, both digital backups in the cloud. I've used Backblaze for some years, and I would seriously recommend looking into that, or one of the competitors. If you don't have any cloud backups arranged right now, it will at some point save you. Plus, I had backups of physical objects as well. That's called contents insurance. So in that sense, I'm quite lucky. Even though I lost nearly everything I own, I should be able to get most of it back. I likely have lost some of the game footage that I captured for the next video, since that was on my PC. That's where I did all my video capture. But the audio and most of the timeline is, I think, okay. There is no reason that I won't be able to finish that video. The thing is that I have a lot of stuff still to take care of to rebuild. And given my lack of equipment and lack of time because of all those things that I need to do, it may be a while before I can get back into the full swing of making retro histories again. I apologize for that. But I will be back with all new equipment, and I want to get back into making new episodes as quickly as I can. On top of that, I've taken a bit of a break from the Patreon posts, but I'll be getting back to the weekly links and the weekly behind-the-scenes posts as quickly as I can. If you do feel like you want to do something that would help me out, there's absolutely no obligation to do so. Honestly, I am fine, and I have support, and I have everything that I need right now. But the only thing I could ask for those of you who want to is that you check out my Patreon at patreon.com/retrohistories. I'm really close to hitting the $100 a month stretch goal, which is the point at which I stop losing money making these videos. And that would be a wonderful thing to be able to hit. Thank you to everyone for your concern, for your kind wishes, and thanks for watching. I'll see you again in the past.